Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to the Mixed Texan Report. Now, this is my first video on this second channel. The other channel is dedicated to various news stories going on around the country. I'm on Rumble and on YouTube, but this channel is specifically for YouTube and is dedicated to Texas politics, election news going on, what's going on down the border, polling, and things like that, and how we can keep Texas red and prosperous. All right, guys, thank you so much. So, I want to talk about this article right here. George Soros donates $1 million into Democrat Beto gubernatorial campaign. Yes, Beto Robert Francis Jumpin' Jack Flap O'Rourke has received $1 million from George Soros. And why is this so important? It's because Soros is tied to funding these far left radical district attorneys in various counties. One being Alvin Bragg in New York, George Gascon in Los Angeles, and Kim Foxx in Illinois for Cook County in Chicago, where Chicago is. And we've seen a surge in crime across the board after these people get put into office. And it's been proven, it's a fact. So, as we can see here, from February to the end of June, O'Rourke raised $27.6 million compared to Greg Abbott's $24.9 million, both a massive amount. So since November 15, 2021, Beto has raised, Robert has raised $40.9 million, but only 60% of the total has come from contributions within Texas, compared to Abbott's $37 million, but he has received 83% from in-state donors. So Abbott is receiving a larger share of in-state donors versus Beto. Abbott has $45.7 million cash on hand compared to Jumpin' Jack Flap's $23.9 million. Now, we saw what happened in 2018 with Ted Cruz and that whole deal with the Senate race. Jumpin' Jack Flap raised over $80 million compared to Ted Cruz's $38.9 million, and still couldn't pull it off. He still could not beat Ted Cruz. As we see here, Ted Cruz beat him by over 200,000 votes and 2.6 percentage points. Yes, it was a very close race, but a lot of conservatives like to point to this and say, oh, look, now this is both sides, the left and the right. Oh, look at what happened in 2018. Beto almost won. Texas is turning blue. Yes, Beto did get really close to winning. He also ran a great campaign, and I feel like Ted Cruz, his campaign did not take Jumpin' Jack Flap serious until the very end. But as you can see here, during that same year in 2018, Greg Abbott clobbered his opponent by over 1 million votes, getting 56% to 42.5%, winning by 1.1 million votes in the statewide race for governor. So, just because he raised a lot of money does not guarantee a victory. Greg Abbott is also a fundraising machine himself, and he has a lot of cash on hand, a lot of donors, so he can play that game as well. But I don't think that the $1 million from people like George Soros or anybody else is really going to make a difference. It'll help him, but it's not going to lead him to victory. I think Greg Abbott will pull this race off decisively. But the reason why this is so important with George Soros getting behind him is because you see things like this. Austin 6th Street mass shooting suspect released without bail. Yes. Now this was a shooting that happened last year on 6th Street. Jeremiah Tabb, 18, charged with tampering with evidence by disposition of an illegal gun involved in a shooting that killed one person and injured 14 in Austin in June 2021, and was released on a personal bond on January 20th. So he was released back into the streets after the shooting and with no bail. Yeah, he didn't have to pay any bail, and he's released back into the streets. This is directly tied to far left DA Jose Garza, who was funded by George Soros. So if you're having a tough time of, wondering who you should vote for, if you're right in the middle, if you don't like Abbott, and you don't really like Jumping Jack Flap, you don't know where to go, look no further than this story right here. And George Soros is behind a lot of the mayhem that we're seeing across the country. So that should be enough to scare anybody into voting for Abbott. That should scare you uh, out of your mind. It does for me because there's actually somebody who is trying to destroy and dismantle America from within. Now Beto is an open borders guy. That's why George Soros got behind him. He's not going to fund Greg Abbott, who is fighting to limit what we're seeing on the border. He's fighting to limit and to secure our borders at least. At least he's trying. I'm not saying I agree with everything he's done or that everything has worked, but he is far better than Jumping Jack Flap, who would just open the floodgates, who won't even try to close the border, to keep the border secure. At least Abbott is sending people down there. He's sending buses to D.C. He's trying to make deals with these governors down in Mexico. You see a lot of troops down there. He's making arrests, so not him specifically, but the guys down there are making arrests, drug busts, things like that. So some things have worked. I don't know what else can be done. We'll get into that in another video. But yeah, I think this should be enough to make people turn the other way. Once you see George Soros, I think that's it. It's a wrap. Yeah, so anyway, tell me what you think in the comments. Does that bother you that Mr. Soros has gotten involved with this campaign? Does that tell you what you need to know? Now, will you be voting for Abbott? I think you should. Even if you don't like him, you should vote for him if you love Texas in the way it is. If you want to keep Texas at least, prosperous the way it is, and at least have some fighting chance at the border. And I think Abbott is your guy, whether you like him or not. I didn't vote for him in the primaries. I voted for Allen West. But at this point, you have to get behind Abbott to keep this nonsense at a minimum. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. And I will see you on the next video. Like and subscribe. Take care.